wanted to run this webinar because I often get on calls with prospective clients, and they say, they ask me all sorts of pointed questions. And I've actually written a kind of white paper on it, or an article on kind of how do you go about choosing a really good PR agency that you're going to get along with. I know at Eskenzi PR, I have worked with Susan Torrey, who's on the call today. That was for a very, very long time ago. And we had such fun working together at Alien Vault.
Mm-hmm.
And
Sure
Susan's been at all sorts of interesting companies, and I've worked with Susan since then in all different companies. So thank you for joining us, Susan. And I think now you're a communications expert, aren't you? Kind of, you do this for all sorts of other companies.
Yep. Yeah, I do.
And then Javvad Malik, who is currently a client at Nova 4, and Javvad and I go back longer than anybody else. Sorry, Lisa or Susan, but I reckon Javvad and I go back, what, 20, it must be 24 years or something like that, Javvad, when you were a boy?
Something like that, yeah, maybe 20 years, I think is closer, but it's as a independent, I suppose, content creator, that's when I first, well, actually before that, as an attendee at Info Security Europe, when you guys were running that, then content, then as an analyst, then as on the vendor side. So I always joke that Eskenzi is actually my real employer. I just work for these other companies as a side hustle.
And we met, we nearly died together, actually. That's another story, didn't we, on the motorway? I drove very well though, didn't I, Javvad? And I did it, didn't I? A tyre burst on the motorway going down to Wales. And you know, when you just literally burst on the motorway, and I had to kind of take the car very calmly, didn't say anything. Wow. My passengers really didn't know anything had even happened.
Skills of a jet fighter, that's what I say, jet fighter pilot.
So, and of course, Lisa Croel, who I've worked with on so many companies. We worked at Alien Vault, which, by the way, all the three people on this call have all worked at Alien Vault. Lisa and I worked at Alien Vault in Perva, and now at DataB. I mean, we worked,
Fortify is where I first met
and
you.
Fortify, absolutely. We worked at many, many companies together. So I thought you were the best bunch of people I could possibly get on when it comes down to how do you go about choosing a good PR agency? Because this is what you guys have done. And I know, Javvad, you recommended us lots of times, as you said, you think you work for us. So I wanted to ask each and every one of you, how do you go about choosing a good PR agency that you work with? Maybe, Lisa, I could start with you, as you are my most recent client.
Now it's just bringing you along wherever and whenever I can. Because once you find a good agency that you work well with and that's delivered just consistently amazing results, you just want to take them with you everywhere, especially if you're staying in the industry. Oh shoot, it says Google Chrome must update, so I might lose you in a minute, but if I do, I'll pop right back in. But yeah, so honestly, once you do find a great agency, you just want to bring them along with you every time. But I certainly have been involved in agency RFPs, and mainly, you know, that cybersecurity depth is really, really important. And I think you can't just bring on, I don't think if you're in any cyber business that you can bring on an agency that doesn't have great depth in that space, because that's, I really think, the only way you can get really good results, and even just understand what your client is doing. I think the industry that we work in and all the different technologies and solutions and tools and services out there are pretty complex. And the more you know about cybersecurity, the better you're going to be able to deliver results for your client if you're a PR person and you understand the industry well, and the publications and the reporters, whoever's left. And how that's evolving. It's really I mean, I've been in cybersecurity 16 years now, and it can only do what I do fairly well because I have that depth of experience now in cybersecurity, and I can understand everything conceptually, and I just, you know, I understand what articles will resonate, what topics are important, makes it a lot easier to keep up on changes in the that are really significant to the company I work for. So mainly, I think depth of cybersecurity experience, demonstrated results, and a certain amount of scrappiness.
Scrappiness. You see, that works well in the States, that word scrappiness. It doesn't work so well here, does it, Javvad, when people are scrappy?
Well, I mean it in the best possible way.
Oh, I
by
know, I know you do. But funnily
Yeah,
enough, when people are scrappy, using it has that's the difference between American and English, isn't it? Because scrappy means often a bit messy. But I know exactly what you mean. It's a nice thing. You mean you can't dip in and out. You can kind of dart in and out of different circumstances, push. It's kind of just pushing, isn't it? And being around.
Yes,
And just
yes, and understand how to repurpose too, and be creative with content, and it just, I think you guys are amazing at that, actually. So
thank you. So Javvad, tell me what, because you've never officially had to go about choosing a PR agency, have you? But you're always in the background, kind of like doing your magic.
I don't know about that, but I think there's a few things. I think to Lisa's point, I think we work in industry. I think if you have an agency that understands the industry, that's great. You want to look at the relationships they have. Do they have the right relationships with the reporters and journalists and everyone in a good way? Because there's so much crap that's thrown out there. People like throwing made up quotes
Technical
out
word,
there.
that one, is it?
Sorry?
like
Very
scrappy.
technical.
Word.
That's a very technical word. Yeah, exactly. So you want, because a PR agency is really a partner of you. They're helping represent you as a business and as an individual if you're a spokesperson for that organization. So the worst thing you want to do is pick an agency who you wouldn't want facing off to journalists and reporters or analysts for you, whoever, because that's the first impression they're going to get of you as an organization. And you see this on LinkedIn so many times, like, oh, I got these pitches from this agent, these agencies, and now I'm never speaking to that organization ever again. So you really need to vet, like, what are you happy with them representing you? Is there a vibe match basically beyond the skill set? And the third one is like, the PR is such a big space. There's so many things. Find the agency that can help meet you where you are as an organization and what your objectives are. So for some, if you're a small startup, maybe you just want to get the word out there. You're not really interested in, something in getting articles placed, but maybe you just want to do a lot of comment ops. Maybe you want to get your executives published in the Financial Times or something. Maybe that's an objective. So align your agency with what your needs are, and find someone that can help support you in that, along that journey, and also just help you navigate that pathway, because what you perceive to be the route you want to take, maybe your PR agency should be able to advise you, well, these are the pros and the cons, and maybe you should consider this path as well.
Perfect. All right, and Susan, I guess they've answered all your questions.
Well, I agree with everything that's been said. I always start with, first of all, bring the agency that you know. I mean, if you have a good partner agency, bring them. And then I start with the why. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? Like when someone says we need PR, well, why do we need PR? So are we, to Javad's point, are we trying to do an IPO? Are we doing M&A? Are we doing awareness, category leadership? Like, what are we trying to accomplish? And then look for an agency that can show that they have done that. And so the industry experience is important. I've been in cyber with all of you for many, many years, but I've also done workforce automation. I've been in API security, IoT security. I've kind of ebbed and flowed with different companies and areas of focus. And so you have to look for someone who knows your area of expertise, and then the chemistry that you have, right? So you can, they have the industry expertise, but the team that you're going to work with. And then I also try to make sure that I don't want whoever's pitching me to leave, like the leadership of that team to not be involved day to day. So that there has to be senior leadership involved in the day to day with me.
I think what you just now said is so important, though, because chemistry is paramount to all of this, I think. And we've been talking about that where we pick up sometimes clients. They just don't get PR. They just think it's all about getting, leads. And I can't. And then they're so driven about sales that they don't actually get. I think they've lost the whole kind of concept of the fact that what we're trying to do is build your brand and kind of we're trying to build your brand. And then they're just so like ruthless. As you know, you've all worked with those sorts of companies. It's all about quarter reports and meeting all your numbers and stuff like that. And PR, I always try and explain this to people, it's not about leads. You know, it's not about leads. It's actually creating a brand, a brand that's going to be reputable and recognized. And
we can influence leads though, right? So I think of it, my term back at Alien Vault was brand gen, right? So, and we were the A team, because I wanted AQLs, awareness qualified leads, because we were not getting credit for all the amazingness we were bringing. And that helps influence people, because if they don't know you, you're not going to be, my former boss would say, you're not going to be on the day one list, and you got to be on the day one list. And PR, comms, and it's broader than PR. That's the other thing people think, and I'm probably going off your questions.
No, because I think
PR is PR.
We're not.
And there's social, there's thought leadership, there's podcasts, there's so much that goes into it. And then having an agency that won't just say yes, that will push on you and ensure that, you know, if you're going to go out with an announcement, the product isn't ready, but we're going to say it's ready, that agency has to help push back on the org. I'm seeing that more and more with AI. People are making false announcements. They are misleading the customer, and the customer has to be in the center of everything we do from a comms perspective too, because as we know in security, you lose that CISO's trust because you put out faulty information and things that aren't accurate, and they purchased on that. That's comms, right? Brand reputation is comms. So
I love that term, awareness qualified leads, Susan. That's clever, and it's true. I always think of PR, if it's done well, and if you get good coverage and across the variety of outlets that there are there, that it just opens the door a crack, right? Yep. So if the salesperson follows up with a lead, they've actually seen our name in print somewhere, you know, and it's just that awareness building. Honestly, if they've heard of you, they're more likely to take a call from you.
Yeah,
exactly. Yep.
Can we trademark that awareness qualified leads?
I know, I like that.
We sure can. I mean, right, Javvad, I fought hard for us to have a seat at the table because the work we did was super hard, right? I mean, Javvad was the evangelist. He's out there pounding the pavement, doing the commentary, doing the tweet chats when those existed back then. I mean, so yeah, I wanted to make sure that we were getting our due, which I think we did back then.
You did. Yeah. Isn't it interesting? You just talked about tweet chats, because Javvad, I remember when you used to do the tweet chats, they were really brilliant. But we've all had to move, haven't we? Javad's brilliant, most things that he touches, but those qualified leads, we're moving at such a fast pace, aren't we now? That we were doing all of those tweet chats. Then we were doing, I don't know, this kind of. We've tried it all, haven't we? What do you think is working maybe at the moment, Javvad? Because you are still an evangelist at the moment for. What do you think is the thing that's possibly working from a PR perspective? Because it isn't, PR is no longer about writing a press release, sending it out, and hoping to God that it's going to plant in a journalist's hand. My God, it's changed beyond all recognition.
It has, and I think what happens is the styles and means change. So you can change from doing a tweet chat to making a video to doing a podcast to doing a TikTok to what have you. But the underlying principles remain the same. You're building trust. You're getting in front of people, and I think it's consistency is the key. Like, you can have some big high item things once a year or twice a year or something, but more than that, I think it's consistency, like letting people know that you're here, you're a trusted voice, and also being open and honest with people when you can't help them or you don't have the thing, then pointing them in another direction. I think that's something that is so overlooked often, where some organizations, they want everything to be about them. Say, like, look at me, I could fix this problem for you, I could fix this problem for you, and buy my tool. Whereas sometimes the best way to build trust is say, like, well, we couldn't have fixed that either. This organization was really unfortunate to have been breached in this way, and just building trust. So just offering people something of value and just being consistent about it, whichever method you use. I mean, because some people are more comfortable on TV or podcasts or what have you, but play to your strengths and just be out there.
I mean, it's actually still very much always about content. I've been doing this for 30 years, and it's still always about good content, isn't it? It's kind of original content that people haven't seen before. and that you're trying to kind of convey in a really original, creative way. I mean, Lisa, you're working at DataB at the moment. What are you using, do you think? Because as I said, PR is just a massive, it just goes over through so many spectrums now. There are so many ways that you can do PR. It's no longer, you know what I mean? It's a big thing. What are you doing? Your job is communications and PR, isn't it? What does that kind of involve?
PR, thought leadership content, produced a couple of ebooks. I work a lot with the team on presentations and abstracts and awards, all kinds, anything related to comms, really. So, yeah. So, and you know, I think one of the things I try to do all the time is we've got an amazing brain trust of really smart people. I mean, we're trying to build a new category. Actually, we've got a solution that's a security data fabric platform. It's a new thing, so we're trying to do the category building that you mentioned earlier, Susan, and it's, you know, it's really challenging. But there's a lot of great content up in the brains of some of my colleagues, and what I try to do is mine that content in whatever form I can, some through meetings, through, you know, through things that I observe, through, you know, and obviously I'll get them on the phone or on a Teams call, and around a specific topic too at times, so that I can create blogs or work with your team on some content and things that we could pitch out. But it's mainly just amassing all of these deep thoughts and then turning them into commentary, into articles, into blogs, into content that we can use, but really just trying to mine the deep thoughts in the heads of the smart people who are trying to build our solution and navigate this industry, which is just, you know, obviously changing so fast, especially with AI. And I will tell you, I use Copilot. We're at Comcast, which DataB is a Comcast company. You know, they do have guardrails around how we can leverage AI, but they're very encouraging of it. So Copilot has been my best friend, because I can take a lot of the content that we've produced and use Copilot to create variations of it. And because I have deep industry experience, I can read what it poops out and determine whether it's accurate, whether it's not, whether it's funny because it's so off base, what, you know, but it helps me accelerate the pace of content delivery, and really good content. I mean, I wouldn't let anything go out the door that sounds false or too self-serving, but that's turned into a really great tool and way of helping me mine the deep thoughts from the team that I work with into content that we can use in a variety of ways.
Yeah, and I think that brings it back to the agency you select too, right? And pushing you to try new mediums. Like we just brought Reddit into the fold, which we hadn't been doing, and it has to be in an authentic way, right? We're not marketing on there, but we're getting our SMEs speaking on that platform, and that was a new brainstorm that we did with our agency. So I think the content and the creativity of that content, the agency that you select should help push you in the right direction and be your extension of your team, right? So I always work in partnership, because versus like some folks will be like, make the agency do this, have the agent, and you're like, the agency is my partner and they're an extension of my team, and we either all win together or we all fail together. Usually we win. That's a goal, and I like to win. I don't like to lose. But that's, I think, picking that the agency that's, you know, not going to be the yes person, going to be creative in how we approach things, finding the right medium of, you know, whether it's a podcast, Reddit, LinkedIn post, LinkedIn Live, and trying things and failing. I mean, I've had some failures and that haven't worked that I thought were going to be super successful on the show floor of RSA. And so where we tried to launch a product, and I had purchased a microphone that took all the sound inward versus outward, so you couldn't even hear the spokesperson. That was fun. That was all on me. That was not the agency.
Well, we learn from our failures, don't we? I mean,
we learn from our failures, but if we don't try, like I do the 80-20 rule. I was telling folks the other day, now it's kind of moving to more 70-30, because with AI, I don't know so much, right? And what will work, what won't. But I used to do 80-20, 80% do what you know, 20% let's test. So I want an agency that's going to come along with me on that too, of let's just go try it. And if it doesn't work, we learned, right? So always evolving. There's so much to learn right now. We lean into, ChatGPT or whatever, LLM you want to use, but getting that authenticity in the content is important. And then being a resource for the reporter so that they come back to you. And that's what the agency helps with too. Because I think other people will select an agency just on their relationships, but the client has to deliver, right? So no matter how great Yvonne's relationship is, if the story is boring or you're not providing provocative commentary or something of value to their readers, it doesn't matter how good Yvonne's relationship is, the reporter isn't going to take the call. So, agencies will say they have great relationships, which they do, because why would you pick an agency that doesn't? But you can't solely rely on the agency's relationships if you aren't going to provide the value that is needed.
Oh, so it's your jobs as well to really understand. As you said, it's a partnership, which is why sometimes it can fall down, can't it? Because expectations aren't being handled, or people expect a product release to kind of like, hey, we've got amazing product, new product come out, and you're kind of going, I know it's really lovely, but I don't think it's going to we want to get into the Financial Times or Wall Street Journal. And then you have to kind of very gently explain that you're not going to get into the Wall Street Journal. Not even Apple gets into the Wall Street Journal necessarily with the latest edition of what they've actually done. And I think that's a very, very important part of our job. I think it's also quite a hard part for you guys, isn't it? Because, if your agency is not able to deliver and you've got the expectations from the people above you, how the hell do you explain that? Because someone's going to take the flak and take the blame. You have to
manage the agency and partnership, and you have to manage up. And a lot of times managing up, people don't want to hear that you're not going to get coverage on a product to launch. We got to build out.
Hard, because that's a your baby is ugly situation, right? Because we know when we work with our agency partners that product announcements are not going to be the biggest entryway to business press coverage, that are massive coverage. But that's a hard thing for higher ups to hear sometimes. I don't have that struggle where I am right now so much, but I certainly have in past organizations. And the product thing can get a little touchy, because it's like saying, well, I know you've worked on this for a year and it's the coolest thing that anybody's ever seen in the world, but guess what? It's not going to resonate so much with the media. They're more interested in and many other topics, but not our new product. It's a little too self-serving. So
it's tough. I think that's really tough. So actually, you do have a balancing act, actually, from your point of view, because it is like, and then they get nasty, and then sometimes you have to fire your PR agency, don't you? Just to keep the people above you happy.
That's where Scrappy can come in too. From if you have a new product announcement coming up that does really have some really interesting technology elements to it, or it is kind of breaking new ground in a different area, then turn that into thought leadership content related to the technology and really having nothing to do with the product, but there are other ways that you can turn that into really interesting content.
Well, that's why I think when you're looking for a PR agency, especially in cybersecurity, you need to find an agency that's creative, because there is something like 9,000 cybersecurity companies out there, and there's not that many publications anymore. So everyone's vying for the space. So I think it's our jobs collectively, isn't it, to try and, I don't know, is that something that you would agree with me? You need to find an agency that's really creative.
Absolutely. And you need Javvad.
Yeah,
you need a Javvad. But yeah, you 100%. And I think product news, you just put it into the business outcomes, right? And talk about what the value that the solution will provide to the customer. And I 100% agree, people have to be creative. And Scrappy's another way to say it, but I just think pivoting, right? I think of it as pivoting. Okay, you have an objective to launch this product. Here's how we best can do it. And I say now, well, press releases are feeding LLMs, so they are back into the limelight, where they kind of fell to the side and blogs became the darling, and now the press release is kind of coming back, as I heard Instagram might be too. I don't do TikToks, but there's other ways to get it out there in partnership with the agency that can meet the goals. It won't be Financial Times coverage, but you know,
Oh my
that's the other thing. People are reading so many different things. Find out where your audience is reading, because they're consuming newsletters are way more important now than they ever were. So how do you get with some of those folks that were traditional reporters but have now gone to the newsletter side? You just gotta. It's such a fun career and space, but it's evolving. And the way that we do things, to your point earlier, Yvonne, it's not drop a press release, hope they cover. But it's a beautiful thing because there's so many different ways now we can reach our audience, and that never used to exist. So an agency that can push that, if they're just focusing on press releases, run.
Yeah. And
Javvad, I'll go on to Javvad because I was going to ask you. Yeah, you go on.
Oh no, I just touching on the creativity part and what have you, and I think this is like what we're all trying to do is create value in the minds of the prospect or the buyer. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to say like we've got high value, and sometimes that involves both giving and what have you. And I think when you focus it, the analogy I really love is that of a restaurant, in that the chef we think adds all the value, because if they make good food, that's what people come for. But one could argue that the cleaner at the front of the house adds just as much value as the chef, because the food could be fantastic, but you wouldn't go into a place that is covered by flies and dirt and smells of sewage. It doesn't matter how good the food is. And so when we talk about a press release, sometimes, or sorry, a new product launch, we're sometimes only focusing on this, the new dish that the chef has made. But we forget about the ambiance that we can create, the cleanliness, the check-in experience. And I think that's where, to the point I think Lisa made, was about how break it into thought leadership pieces, tell people about the value that they can get from it without focusing purely on here's our new dish. And I think that's where that creativity really comes in.
Never thought for myself as a cleaning lady in my life before, but I'll think of it as that in the future. Great. I'm going to tell everyone I'm a cleaning lady now, but I love that analogy actually, Javvad. You're absolutely right. You, in a way, know before are very lucky, and the guys before the Alien Vaults and all the people that have had you as an evangelist, because that is perfect. You know, just having an evangelist work for an organization is the actual, that's just everything, isn't it? That's the panacea. That's the oh, you're nodding. It is though, isn't it? Because from our point of view, we've got you, and you make our life so much easier as a PR agency, because you're the person that's come up with content. There is a dedicated person, and the ones when you have a look at the companies that have someone like a Javvad, no one has a Javvad, but if they were lucky enough to have,
he needed to be cloned.
Yeah, they need to be cloned. But they're the ones that will always get masses, and there are only a few of you. There's a few other people out there in the industry, the cybersecurity industry. I would probably say there's about 5 or 6 similars to you. Those are the companies that are getting the most coverage, actually, because they've got somebody like you.
Yeah.
But the big thing is that I get support from a team as well internally. There needs to be a leader who actually buys into the fact that we need this role in the organization. And they're very clear that this is predominantly a brand role, a PR role. All too often you see of organizations, they want to hire someone like an evangelist or an advocate or whatever you want to call them. And then they say, okay, basically you're a glorified sales engineer, or you're doing pre-sales, or they drag them away doing more things that could help land a sale as opposed to work with PR. So I think that having that right attitude internally, or having that right clarity of mind is essential.
Do you think you get rid of a PR agency if you've got a good evangelist, and let the evangelist do it all with a good internal PR person?
I think that's a different skill set, though.
Yeah.
You still need an agency. I mean, especially in cyber and in the AI world. To your point, there's 9,000 companies, right? Like you need more people thinking about what we can do to break through than just 2 people. Like I mean, I think it takes a team. I think it takes, and you need an agency partner for sure.
I also think
you guys have a pulse on the reporters, and one person could not keep up with all this.
And I would think it would almost disqualify an evangelist from being that trusted content or you know, font of wisdom for a company if they're also doing the interfacing with all the reporters, you know, that that they're one and the same. You know, I think you need that distance between who your spokesperson is, or who your, you know, kind of your smart person conveying all these messages is, and who's actually interfacing with the media to try to get coverage.
Okay. And what would you say are the pros and cons of going with a boutique agency versus a large global agency? Because you both, Lisa and Susan, have worked in the past for PR agencies, big ones. And Susan, I know you always used to use Lewis.
Yes. So I have lots of thoughts on this. And I grew up at Wagner Edstrom, and it's a phenomenal agency. Rest in peace, Pam Edstrom. I learned so much from her. Personally, I gravitate towards boutique. I think that because I work in startup land, right? So we don't have these massive budgets, and I want to be the big fish. So, and I'm only going to have limited budget. So if I go with a larger agency, and there's a lot more rigidity. I just worked with a large agency, and you know, again, they can promise the world, but at the end of the day, we have to give them stuff to work on. And the budgets are, you know, you have to spend a lot more with the bigger agencies, and the results, the partnership you can make with a boutique agency, and you get the team. The team is the team, right? And they're not going to come in and do this big pitch with 7 people and then walk away. So there is a time and a place for a large agency. I think when you're in startup land and a smaller organization, boutique is the way to go, personally.
What do you reckon, Lisa?
Oh, I totally agree. And I've been more in startup land too, although, you know, we were acquired at 4 to 5 by HP, so I was there for a while. And I've been with other large companies since I've been in cyber, but more startup than not. And I definitely prefer working with the boutique. I think, to Susan's point, you get the team. I mean, the team you get with the boutique agency is the team you continue to work with. Which is great. You know, you don't have big wigs coming in from New York and Paris, and you know, and making pitches and then going away. There are advantages of larger agencies, I'm sure, but and maybe geographic advantages potentially if they've got offices in other regions of the world that you want to be in. But for the most part, the time, attention, intelligence, and media relationships that I've gotten from a boutique agency and from working like with Eskenzi has been just far and away better and higher quality than anything I've ever experienced with a larger agency. So I'm very biased.
Thank you, Lisa. Javvad, any thoughts?
I think that there's space for both in the world, and it's a bit like, do you want to use the automatic checkout at Tesco when you do your shopping, which is quick and efficient and you don't have to talk to anyone? Or do you want to go down to a farmer's market on the weekend and it's slow and you won't always get what you want, but you'll get a higher quality of produce and you might have some interesting conversations with people? Personally, I'm obviously a boutique person. I like to know who I'm dealing with. I like the relationships you can build up. And I mean, one of my best things is the Guinness World Record certificate here, which I think Rohit came up with the idea from
yeah, I've got mine down there as well.
Yeah, and it was like just in a few months we went from idea to execution and to having set a world record. So I think that kind of thing you can only really do in a boutique agency, where those kinds of ideas come up, where those kind of execution can happen, rather than it being a multi-year, multifaceted project. You know, so many layers of sign-off.
And I, you know, it's funny. I've always had Neil has always said, Neil, for anyone that doesn't know, that is the other kind of partner in crime at Eskenzi, the other co-founder. You guys know him as Neil, my husband. He maybe 5 or 6 years ago, Neil would say to me, PR's going to die. It's just finished. We ought to get out of this game. It's dead and gone. Look at all of us sitting on this screen.
He was wrong. It's more important than ever, honestly. I mean, not just because it's my career, but it is more important than ever.
Why do you
and we're finally
say that? Tell me why you're saying that, Susan.
I think that there is, again, with AI and what's happening, in the United States of America, the authenticity, the trust of the news, making sure that your executives are speaking from a source of honesty and trust, right? Because if you don't have trust, your customers will not come, right? Or they will not renew. So I think our ability to counsel the executives on how they need to present themselves, no matter what medium it is more important than ever.
Javvad, what do you reckon?
I think it's for all those reasons. I think what we look at is, while it's easy to create AI slop or any other content and push it out there, we're rapidly entering a phase where it's a bit like how people really like vinyl records again, because of the ritual and the authenticity of it, the whole process of going about it. And I think people want that human connection. They want a human putting stuff in human ways for them, because I think the pendulum has shifted too far towards the automation side, or too far towards the let's solve everything with technology. And I was reading something about, I don't know if any of you have got an electric car, but they say that range anxiety is a thing for people. They're like, I need to go from one city to another. Will my battery last? What if it starts raining? What if it's traffic and what have you? And they said that the problem is that when people talk about range anxiety, manufacturers, they go into this mode of like, how do we increase the range? And so they focus purely on the technical side of it. And no one stops to think, like, why don't we tackle the human aspect, which is the anxiety part? And that's where I think PR comes in. That's where I think brand comes in. That's where it's like, here's how you can make it a more pleasurable experience without getting anxious about it. And that, I think, is something that only you can solve with good PR, with good storytelling, with good brains behind it.
I mean, this is, well, I'm delighted to hear you all say that, because that means I'm here for a little bit longer. But it is the whole thing about GEO, and the whole kind of search engine with generic. It is generic, isn't it? That's the word, GEO optimization. Yep. It's so it's now more than ever important, because what we found is that when our clients almost are now getting to the top of the GEO engines, because they're getting more of the coverage. And the more original, it's all down to this original coverage that you're getting, the more you're being found by the AI engines, which is incredible. So suddenly PR is now worth more than it's ever been before. And I find that really interesting, because that means I can tell Neil to go run and do a jump somewhere. Because I've always said, no, I think we'll be around for an awful lot longer. And actually now, funnily enough, as you said, Susan, PR is actually more important now than ever. And I think trying to find an agency that kind of gets the whole GEO side. We at Eskenzi actually have just employed, we're doing quite a lot of work with N8N and doing just tons and tons of work into this area to try and make sure we're ahead of the curve. And I think it's this whole thing again of, maybe that's why we love being in this industry, is that we're constantly evolving. It's just never changing. Maybe if I was doing PR for shoes or hotels, it would never be like this, but we're in cybersecurity and it is so exciting. Every day there's another story that's breaking, but there's also all these new tools. It's just kind of, it's manic, which is what's so exciting. But I think we are having to be on top of it, which is maybe what keeps all four of us on this call so young looking.
We've not changed over the years.
Not at all. Not at all.
Well, you three haven't. Speak for yourselves. I mean, this job has aged me horribly.
Sometimes we don't know what color Yvonne's hair is going to be. I will say that.
Oh God, it's all changing. It's all being chopped off. It's all going.
You know,
I'm a little cough.
About being in PR is that, I mean, just for us selfishly within the organizations we work in, I think what I've loved about it over the years is that you're at the nexus of everything that's happening in your organization. You need to be in order to be able to mine those great stories that are out there, right? And to understand what kind of storytelling you need to be taking out to the market, and to understand the outcomes that you're delivering to customers. I mean, what's so great about being in PR, honestly, is that it can drive a lot of final decision making and strategy, I think, because how you take your story to market can sometimes influence everybody else in the organization to be to be focused. And I love it for that reason. You have to know what's going on across your organization in order to deliver great PR results for your organization, and in order to keep your agency partners informed enough that they can help you pull together all those great stories and take them out. So it's a neat role to be in. And to Susan's point, it is really important. And for as much as I love Copilot, if I weren't looking at its results, and I mean, it can help me accelerate the pace of content, but boy, the human cannot be out of that equation.
We're not extinct yet.
No,
We're not extinct.
Thank goodness for that.
Thank you. So we've got a few minutes left. Thank you. We've got a few minutes left. Is there anything that you want to say to just kind of round it all off? What you think we should do to choose a really good PR, or some of the lessons you've learned from finding bad PR agencies that you've worked with, would be just as interesting. But if there's anything else you want to say, otherwise we can all pop off and go our friendly ways. We can stay on.
Well, just ask to see their portfolio of, I mean, if you're in the selection process, have the agencies you're evaluating walk you through how they've pulled together really compelling stories and what kind of results that their work has gotten. I mean, you do need to vet that a little bit, and you know, have them brainstorm, or you know, walk you through a scenario where they've tackled a really interesting subject and turned it into media gold. So, well, do due diligence.
Susan, do you want to say anything?
The only other thing I'd add is when you go through the RFP process, I do think the RFP is important because it helps you collect your thoughts on what you're trying to accomplish and be very clear to the agencies that you're going to choose. And I would keep the list small. So don't ask 12 agencies to present. You know, you're not, I mean, 3 to 4 max. And then again, if you have an agency that you've used successfully before, bring them along, because there's nothing better than a known team to partner with.
And they're all the things I've written. Like, oh, Javvad, did you want to say anything finally?
I just wanted to add that don't fall into the trap of like no one ever got fired for hiring IBM. You know, it's look around and find the right agency that meets your needs, not just the ones that offer you the best numbers. Because this is a field where a lot of organizations really struggle to measure impact. They struggle to measure, and this is something that especially if you're a startup and you're new, it's going to change over time until you figure out what your metrics actually are. So don't just be seduced by a fancy brochure and everything, I'd say.
Okay, thank you. I've actually written like a white paper with all your points mentioned in it, actually. So it's I've done that. You know, think things like stay clear of the generalists, boutique or big named agency. Have they got an international presence? Ask to see their last 3 months worth of coverage that they've done for other clients. Because if they can't show you that and they haven't done it for anybody else, that's always, I mean, we're only as good as as a PR agency, you're only as good as the last 3 months worth of coverage you've actually got. You know, get your, as you said, right, Susan, get your RFP right, because that helps you. Make sure that they're not overstretched, because they're working on tons and tons of clients. They're never going to be able to give you the time. Try a 3-month chemistry trial, which I think is really important. Make sure they're well connected. They've been recommended to you. And, you know, are they creative? We look back at that point. If they're not creative, they're never going to get the coverage you kind of so deserve. And try, you know, just use your mates. You know, just talk to your jungle kind of like contacts, and go out there and listen to what they've all got to say about their agencies. But it's so nice to see you all again, and thank you so much for your time. I thought that was really interesting.
Great to see you.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. This was super fun. Good to see everybody.
Yeah,
I know.
great.
That's cool.
Love it.
Brilliant. Thank you.